The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of the Golden Gate Hotel's grand ballroom as Adunni Okafor watched her husband of 12 years grind against another woman on the dance floor. Not just any woman, her younger sister, Funmi. The betrayal hit harder than any enemy bullet she'd ever dodged in the Nigerian Army's Special Operations Unit. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed and comment below where you're watching from. Celebrating our anniversary without me, I see. Adunni's voice cut through the music as she approached the dancing couple. Her military training kept her posture straight, but inside, her world was crumbling. Cheek's eyes went wide with panic. Adunni, baby, this isn't what it looks like. She smiled coldly, her hand instinctively moving to where her service weapon would normally rest. It looks like my husband is celebrating our 12th wedding anniversary by cheating with my own sister. Funmi had the audacity to smirk. Maybe if you weren't always traveling for your business trips, your husband wouldn't need comfort elsewhere. The guests at the upscale Lagos party began to whisper and point. Phone cameras emerged like vultures circling prey. This wasn't just private heartbreak, this was public disgrace, and it would be all over social media within the hour. 12 years, cheeky! Adunni's voice remained steady despite the earthquake in her chest. 12 years I've protected this country while you built your construction empire with my financial support, and this is how you repay me. Cheeky grabbed her arm roughly. You're making a scene. Let's talk at home. Don't. Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that made several nearby guests step back. Don't you dare touch me. But he didn't listen. His grip tightened, and in front of 200 of Lagos's elite, he did something that would seal his fate forever. He raised his hand and struck her across the face. The ballroom fell silent except for the sound of her heels as she took one step back, then another. Blood trickled from her split lip, but her eyes burned with something that made even the boldest men in the room look away. You have no idea who you just hit, she whispered, touching the blood on her lip. But you're about to find out. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed with a text from her commanding officer. Mission briefing tomorrow, high priority assignment. Adunni smiled for the first time that evening. Her husband thought she was just another housewife with a mysterious job. He had no clue that Major Adunni Okafor was one of Nigeria's most decorated intelligence officers, with connections that could make his comfortable life disappear like smoke in Harmattan wind. The revenge story was about to begin, and this public disgrace would be the last time Chike Okafor humiliated his wife. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Victoria Island penthouse as Adunni packed her military duffel bag with practiced efficiency. Each folded uniform, each polished insignia, told the story of a woman Cheeky had never bothered to know. Where are you going? Cheeky emerged from the master bedroom, his voice still thick with alcohol and guilt from the previous night. Work. She didn't look up from her packing. What work? You've never told me exactly what you do for the government. Adunni paused, holding her major's insignia between her fingers. For 12 years, she'd kept her military rank secret to protect both her missions and her marriage. Her husband knew she worked for the federal government, travelled frequently, and earned good money. He'd never asked for details, too busy enjoying the lifestyle her salary afforded. I thought you didn't care, as long as the money kept coming. She finally turned to face him, and he flinched at the purple bruise blooming across her cheekbone. Adunni, about last night? What? About hitting me in front of half of Lagos, or about grinding on my sister like a teenager at a nightclub? Cheek's construction company phone rang, interrupting his stammered apology. Okafor Construction, he answered, turning away from her. While he took the call, Adunni's secure phone buzzed. The message was brief but chilling. Your husband's company flagged for investigation. Coincidence? Colonel Mahmoud. Her blood ran cold. Colonel Mahmoud was her direct superior and one of Nigeria's most feared military intelligence officers. If he was texting about Cheek's business, it meant trouble, the kind that could destroy families and end careers. That was the bank, Cheek said, hanging up. Some irregularities with our accounts, probably just paperwork issues. Adunni zipped her bag shut. I'm sure it is. When will you be back? I don't know. She headed for the door, then paused. Cheek? Yes? You might want to call a good accountant, and maybe a lawyer. The confusion on his face almost made her feel sorry for him. Almost. But then she remembered Funmi's smug smile, remembered the sting of his palm across her face, remembered 12 years of taking her for granted. As she drove toward the defense headquarters in Abuja, her phone rang. Funmi's name appeared on the screen. Sister Me. Funmi's voice was sickeningly sweet. I wanted to apologize about last night. I was drunk and what? You accidentally fell on my husband's dick. Adunni, that's crude. You want to know what's crude, Funmi? Betraying your own blood. But don't worry, I have a feeling your conscience will catch up with you soon enough. She ended the call and smiled grimly at the road ahead. Her secure phone buzzed again with a message that made her smile widen. Your sister's modelling agency under tax investigation. Another coincidence. Colonel Mahmoud? The pieces of her revenge were already falling into place, and she hadn't even reached headquarters yet. What happens when a woman with government connections discovers her family's betrayal? Keep watching to find out. The defense headquarters in Abuja was buzzing with activity as Major Adunni Okafor strode through the corridors in full military uniform. Fellow officers saluted as she passed, their respect evident in every gesture. Here she wasn't just someone's wife, she was a decorated intelligence officer with the power to topple governments. Major Okafor, Colonel Mahmoud stood as she entered his office. I trust your evening was eventful, she touched her bruised cheek. News travels fast in our circles. Sir? Everything travels fast when you're married to someone under investigation for money laundering and tax evasion. He gestured to a thick file on his desk. Okafor Construction has been flagged for irregularities dating back 3 years. Shell companies, offshore accounts, inflated government contracts. Adunni's stomach dropped. Sir, I had no knowledge of... I know you didn't. Your financial records are clean, your security clearance intact. But your husband... He opened the file. Chike Okafor has been systematically stealing from government contracts while hiding money in accounts linked to your sister's modelling agency. The room spun slightly. Funmi's agency. Funmi Fashola's Divine Models Lagos is a front. Dirty money in, clean money out. Your sister and your husband have been partners in more ways than one. The betrayal deepened with each revelation. It wasn't just adultery, it was financial fraud using her own family. What are my options, sir? Colonel Mahmoud leaned back. Officially, we're building a case that will take months. Unofficially. His smile was predatory. You're one of our best intelligence officers. I'm sure you can think of more creative solutions. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Your husband is meeting with Funmi at the Transcorp Hilton, room 1247, today, 3 p.m. A friend. Sir, I need to request immediate leave. Approved. And Major. He handed her a small recording device. Sometimes the best evidence comes from letting people hang themselves with their own words. Back in Lagos, Adunni sat in her car outside the Transcorp Hilton, watching the entrance. Her husband's silver Mercedes pulled up at exactly 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes later, Funmi's red BMW followed. She waited 20 minutes before entering, her heart pounding with each step toward room 1247. The recording device felt heavy in her pocket as she raised her hand to knock. But she didn't need to. The voices inside were loud enough to hear through the door. When will you leave her? Funmi's voice was petulant. Soon, Once I transfer the last of the offshore funds, we can disappear together. Maybe Dubai or London. And the money from her government job. I've been siphoning from her accounts for months. She's so busy playing soldier she never checks. Adunni's hand shook as she activated the recording device. Her own sister and husband weren't just betraying her emotionally, they were stealing her life's work and planning to run away together. The door suddenly opened, and Cheek stepped out, nearly colliding with her. His face went white. "Adunni, what are you doing here?" "Oh, don't stop on my account," she said sweetly. "Please continue discussing how you plan to steal my money and flee the country." The hotel room fell silent as death. Funmi emerged from behind Chike, her silk robe barely covering her nakedness, her eyes wide with the realization that their schemes had been exposed. "How much did you hear?" Chike's voice was barely a whisper. "Enough." Adunni stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. The click of the lock sounded like a gunshot in the tense atmosphere. "Enough to know that you've been stealing from me for months. Enough to know you're planning to run away with my sister. Enough to know that you think I'm just some clueless soldier." Funmi wrapped the robe tighter around herself. "Sister, let me explain." "Sister?" Adunni's laugh was bitter. "You lost the right to call me that the moment you decided to spread your legs for my husband and help him steal my money." "It's not what you think." Cheeky stepped forward, but Adunni's military training kicked in. Her posture shifted into something dangerous, something that made him freeze mid-step. "Oh, but it's exactly what I think. You see, while you've been playing these little games, I've been doing some investigating of my own." She pulled out her phone and played a recording of their conversation. Their own voices filled the room, discussing offshore accounts and escape plans. Funmi's face crumpled. "You recorded us." "I'm an intelligence officer, Funmi. Recording conversations is what I do." She looked between them, her expression cold. "Did you really think you could outsmart someone trained in psychological warfare and covert operations?" Chika's phone rang, interrupting the standoff. His face paled as he read the caller ID. "It's the bank." "Answer it," Adunni commanded. "Put it on speaker." With trembling hands, Cheek accepted the call. "Hello? Mr. Okafor, this is the manager of First Bank. We need to discuss some irregularities with your accounts. Several large transactions have been flagged, and we need you to come in immediately." Chika's knees gave out, and he sank onto the hotel bed. "What kind of irregularities?" "Unexplained transfers, sir. Large sums moved to offshore accounts. The Central Bank of Nigeria has been notified, and your accounts are being frozen pending investigation." The call ended, leaving the room in suffocating silence. "How?" Chiki looked up at Adunni with desperate eyes. "You want to know how?" She smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. "I may have mentioned to a friend in financial intelligence that my husband was hiding assets. Amazing how quickly these things get investigated when the right people ask the right questions." Funmi started crying. "Adunni, please, I'm your sister. We can work this out." "Work it out?" Adunni's voice rose for the first time. "You helped him steal from me. You've been sleeping with my husband. You planned to disappear with money I earned risking my life for this country." Her phone buzzed with a text from Colonel Mahmoud. "Phase 2 initiated. Check the news." She turned on the hotel room's television and switched to Channels TV. The news anchor's voice filled the room. "Breaking news. Major financial fraud investigation rocks Lagos construction industry. Okafor Construction Company and its associated businesses are under federal investigation for money laundering and tax evasion." Chike's face appeared on the screen, his company logo alongside photos of seized assets. "You did this," he whispered, staring at his wife with new understanding. "You're not just some government worker. I'm Major Adunni Okafor of the Nigerian Army Intelligence Corps," she said, finally revealing her true identity. "And you just made the biggest mistake of your miserable life." But as she spoke, her phone rang with a number that made her blood run cold, her commanding officer's emergency line. Major Okafor! Colonel Mahmoud's voice crackled through the phone with unusual urgency. We have a problem, a big one. Adunni moved away from Chike and Funmi, lowering her voice. What kind of problem, sir? Your husband's construction company. It wasn't just stealing from government contracts. They were laundering money for some very dangerous people. People who don't like their business partners getting arrested. Her blood turned to ice. How dangerous are we talking? The kind that make people disappear, Major. You need to get somewhere safe, now. Through the hotel window, Adunni spotted 3 black SUVs pulling into the parking lot. Men in expensive suits were stepping out, their movements coordinated like a military unit. Sir, I think they're already here. Listen carefully. Colonel Mahmoud's voice was sharp. Get to the safe house in Ikoyi. I'm sending backup, but you need to move now. And Major, your husband may have been more involved with these people than even we suspected. She ended the call and turned back to Cheek, who was still staring at the television in shock. Chike, who did you borrow money from for your expansion last year? What? Why does that matter now? Answer me. Her military voice made both him and Funmi jump. Some businessmen, they said they liked my work, wanted to invest. Names, Chike. I need names. Funmi was looking out the window now, her face white with terror. Adunni, there are men downstairs. They're asking the desk clerk about this room. Chiki seemed to finally understand the gravity of their situation. Chief Emeka Nwosu, he's the one who gave me the loan, but he seemed legitimate. Chief Nwosu. Adunni's heart nearly stopped. She knew that name from intelligence briefings. He was suspected of being one of West Africa's biggest money launderers, with connections to international criminal organizations. Chike, you didn't borrow money from him. You became his business partner in a criminal empire. A knock at the door interrupted them. A polite voice called out, "Room service." They hadn't ordered room service. Adunni quickly assessed their options. They were on the 12th floor with no balcony access. The only exit was through the door, where armed men were likely waiting. Both of you, get in the bathroom, now! Adunni, what's happening? Funmi was crying harder now. The people your boyfriend was working with don't like loose ends, and right now we're all loose ends. The knocking became more insistent. Mr. Okafor, we know you're in there. Chief Nwosu would like to have a word. Adunni's military training kicked into full gear. She surveyed the room for weapons, exits, anything that could help them survive the next few minutes. Her service weapon was locked in her car downstairs, a mistake she might not live to regret. Chike, she whispered urgently, is there anything else you haven't told me? Any other deals? Any other people involved? His face crumpled completely. The Minister of Works, he's been taking cuts from all my government contracts. If this investigation goes deep, which minister? Minister Adebayo. Your friend from university. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. David Adebayo wasn't just the Minister of Works, he was her former classmate, someone she'd trusted, someone who knew about her military career. The hotel room door exploded inward, splinters of wood flying across the room. 3 men in dark suits entered, their eyes scanning for targets. The leader smiled when he saw Adunni. Major Okafor, he said in accented English, Chief Nwosu sends his regards. How did they know her rank? How did they know her real identity? We just want to talk, the man continued, about your husband's business arrangements, and about certain information that needs to stay private. Adunni realized with growing horror that this wasn't just about Cheek's crimes. Someone had betrayed her identity to these criminals, and now her military career, her life, everything she'd worked for was in jeopardy. The leader's radio crackled. Target acquired. Minister Adebayo wants to speak with her personally. Her university friend hadn't just been taking bribes, he'd been setting her up. What did the minister want with her, and how deep does this conspiracy go? Don't forget to like and subscribe. The black SUV's windows were tinted so dark that Adunni couldn't see the Lagos traffic outside as they sped through the city. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back, but her military mind was cataloguing every turn, every sound, every detail that might help her escape. Chike and Funmi sat across from her, both looking terrified. The armed men had separated them from Adunni, but kept all three together, a sign that they were all considered valuable assets rather than just victims. "Where are you taking us?" Chike's voice cracked. "To see an old friend of your wife's," the leader replied, his accent clearly Igbo. "Minister Adebayo is very interested in speaking with Major Okafor." Adunni's mind raced. David Adebayo had been her closest friend at the University of Lagos, her study partner, the person who'd encouraged her to join the military after graduation. How had he become entangled in this criminal network? The SUV pulled into a heavily guarded compound in the exclusive Banana Island district. Armed security guards waved them through multiple checkpoints, and Adunni realized this wasn't just a meeting, this was a fortress. They were escorted into a palatial mansion where Minister David Adebayo waited in a luxurious sitting room. He'd aged well, his politician's smile as charming as ever, but his eyes held a coldness that hadn't been there in university. "Adunni!" He stood and embraced her, as if the zip ties around her wrists were invisible. "My dear friend, look how successful you've become." "David," she kept her voice steady, "I wish I could say it's good to see you." He gestured for everyone to sit, his manner casual despite the armed guards flanking the room. "I suppose you're wondering how we ended up here?" The thought had crossed my mind. "Your husband came to me 2 years ago looking for government contracts. I saw an opportunity, a successful construction company married to a military intelligence officer, the perfect front for our operations." Chike looked confused. "I don't understand. You said you were helping me win legitimate contracts." David laughed. "Oh, Chike, you really thought it was coincidence that you started winning every bid you submitted? That your company grew from small residential projects to billion-naira government contracts overnight?" The pieces clicked together in Adunni's mind. "You've been using Chike's company to launder money through inflated government contracts. That's why the Financial Intelligence Unit flagged him." "Very good, Major, and your sister's modelling agency provided another layer. Young women travelling internationally, perfect for moving cash and valuable items across borders." Funmi gasped. "My girls, you were using my models as drug mules." "Not drugs, my dear, something much more valuable. Information. Your beautiful models charmed their way into parties, bedrooms, and boardrooms across West Africa, gathering intelligence that we sold to the highest bidders." Adunni felt sick. Her own sister had been unknowingly running a spy network. "But then," David continued, "our major here started getting too close to some of our other operations. Your investigation into the Katsina Arms smuggling ring? That was one of ours. The Port Harcourt oil theft case? Also ours. You've cost us millions, Adunni. So you decided to destroy my marriage and frame my husband. I decided to neutralize a threat while maintaining a valuable asset." He smiled coldly. "But then you got too clever with your little revenge scheme, freezing accounts, launching investigations, involving Colonel Mahmoud. You forced my hand." One of the guards whispered something in David's ear, and his expression darkened. "It seems your Colonel Mahmoud has been busy. Military intelligence raided 3 of our properties in Abuja while we've been chatting. You've triggered a war, my dear friend." Adunni's phone, which they'd left in her pocket, suddenly buzzed with an emergency tone. David nodded to one of his men, who checked the message. "Sir, it's from Colonel Mahmoud. He says, 'We have your location. Surrender the major or face the full force of the Nigerian army.'" David's smile faded completely. "It appears your rescue is en route, but I'm afraid we can't let you leave with what you now know about our operations." He pulled out a pistol and pointed it at Chike. Your husband dies first, then your sister. Then you'll watch as we eliminate everyone you care about before we finish you." But as he spoke, the lights in the mansion suddenly cut out. In the darkness, Adunni heard the sound she'd been praying for: helicopters approaching fast. Share this with someone who loves African marriage drama. What happens when the military storms a criminal fortress? Keep watching. The emergency lighting bathed the mansion in an eerie red glow as the sound of helicopters grew louder overhead. David Adebayo's composed mask finally slipped, revealing the desperate criminal beneath the politician's facade. "Kill them all," he barked to his guards. "We'll say they were trying to escape when the military arrived." But years of intelligence training had taught Adunni to prepare for moments exactly like this. As the first guard raised his weapon, she threw herself sideways off her chair, rolling behind a heavy mahogany table just as bullets splintered the wood where she'd been sitting. "Cheek, fund me, stay down," she screamed. The mansion's windows exploded inward as military rappelling ropes appeared. Smoke grenades detonated throughout the room, filling the space with thick, choking clouds that provided precious cover. Through the chaos, Adunni heard Colonel Mahmoud's voice booming through a megaphone. "This is the Nigerian army. Surrender immediately." One of David's guards stumbled through the smoke, his weapon sweeping frantically. Adunni spotted a heavy crystal ashtray on a nearby side table. Despite her bound hands, she managed to grab it and swing with all her strength, connecting with the man's temple. He dropped like a stone. "The keys!" she called to Cheek, who was cowering behind an overturned chair. "Check his pockets for the zip-tie keys." Cheeky crawled forward, his hands shaking as he searched the unconscious guard. "Got them!" As he freed her hands, Adunni heard David's voice from across the room. "If I can't have you as an asset, Adunni, I'll make sure no one can." She spun around to see him pointing his pistol directly at her chest, his finger tightening on the trigger. The shot rang out, but it wasn't from David's gun. Colonel Mahmoud stood in the doorway, his service weapon smoking. David Adebayo, the corrupt Minister of Works, crumpled to the floor, clutching his shoulder. "Major Okafor!" Colonel Mahmoud's voice was professional, but she could hear the relief underneath. "Are you injured?" "No, sir, but we have a problem." She gestured toward the wounded minister. "This conspiracy goes deeper than we thought. He's been running an international espionage network using my sister's modeling agency and my husband's construction company. We know. We've been monitoring his communications for the past hour." He signaled to the military medics entering the room. "Mr. Minister, you're under arrest for treason, money laundering, and conspiracy against the state." As medics tended to David's wound, he looked up at Adunni with hatred burning in his eyes. "You think this ends with me? You have no idea how deep this goes. There are ministers, generals, business leaders across West Africa involved in this network." "Then we'll find them all," she replied coldly. Funmi stumbled toward her sister, tears streaming down her face. "Adunni, I'm so sorry. I had no idea about the models, about the money, about any of it. I thought I was just running a legitimate agency." "And Chaik?" Her husband couldn't meet her eyes. "I knew some of it wasn't legitimate. The contracts came too easily, the money was too good, but I didn't know about the spying or the international connections. I got greedy." Colonel Mahmoud approached with a tablet in his hands. "Major, we need to debrief you immediately. This network has been operating for at least 5 years. They've compromised security operations across Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal." As they prepared to leave the mansion, Adunni's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown international number. "You may have stopped David, but the organization is bigger than one corrupt minister. Watch your back, Major. We know where you live." Colonel Mahmoud saw her face pale as she read the message. "What is it?" "They're threatening me. Even with David caught, the network is still active." "Then we'll put you in protective custody until—" "No." Her voice was firm. "I won't hide from criminals, but I will need a new assignment, somewhere far from Lagos, somewhere they can't easily find me." I may have something in mind, Colonel Mahmoud smiled grimly. How do you feel about a posting to our embassy in Ghana? We need someone to investigate suspicious activities among West African diplomatic circles. As they walked toward the waiting military vehicles, Chiki grabbed her arm. Adunni, what happens to us now, to our marriage? She looked at him, really looked at him, for perhaps the first time in years. The man who had hit her, betrayed her, stolen from her, and endangered her life through his greed. There is no us, Chika. There never was. You married a woman you never bothered to know, and you betrayed someone you never deserved. But as they reached the vehicles, one of the soldiers approached Colonel Mahmoud urgently. Sir, we have a problem. 3 of David's top lieutenants escaped during the raid, and they took critical files about the network's operations. The colonel's face darkened. Which files? Everything about their international contacts, and sir, they have Major Okafor's complete service record. 3 weeks later, Adunni stood on the balcony of her temporary apartment in Accra, Ghana, watching the Atlantic Ocean crash against the coast. The posting to the Nigerian embassy was supposed to be her fresh start, but the threatening messages hadn't stopped. They'd only gotten more specific. Her secure phone buzzed. We know you're in apartment 4B, Labadi Towers. The woman in 4C has a daughter at Lincoln Community School. Would hate for something to happen to innocent children. The network. Her blood ran cold. They weren't just threatening her anymore, they were threatening innocent neighbors. A knock at her door made her hand move instinctively toward her service weapon. Who is it? Embassy courier, Major. I have documents from Lagos. She opened the door to find a young man in official embassy uniform holding a sealed envelope. As she reached for it, she noticed his hands were shaking. Are you all right? Major, they made me bring this. I'm sorry. He turned and ran toward the elevator. Inside the envelope was a photograph that made her knees weak. It showed Chiki tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, his face bloodied. A gun pointed at his head. The accompanying note read, Your ex-husband borrowed money from people who don't forgive debts. Return our stolen files within 48 hours, or he dies. Then we come for your sister, then your neighbors, then you, the network. Her phone rang immediately. It was Funmi calling from Lagos. Adunni! Her sister's voice was hysterical. They took Chiki. Men with guns came to his apartment and... Slow down. Tell me exactly what happened. I was there trying to convince him to sell the penthouse to pay for a lawyer. These men broke in, said he owed Chief Nwosu money, said he'd betrayed the organization. They beat him and dragged him away. Did they hurt you? No, but they said I'm next if you don't return something that belongs to them. Adunni closed her eyes. Despite everything Cheek had done, despite the divorce papers she'd filed, despite his betrayal, she couldn't let him die. And Funmi, for all her mistakes, was still her sister. Listen to me carefully, she told Funmi. Pack a bag and get to the airport. Fly to Accra tonight. I'll have embassy security meet you. What about Chaik? I'll handle Chaik. After ending the call, Adunni immediately contacted Colonel Mahmoud's secure line. Sir, the network has kidnapped my ex-husband and is threatening my sister. They want the files we confiscated from David's organization. Absolutely not, Major. Those files contain intelligence about their entire West African operation. We can't... Then what's your solution? Let them execute him. There was a long pause. What if we didn't give them the real files? Sir, our intelligence division has been working on creating false documents that would appear authentic but contain misinformation. We could use this as an opportunity to feed the network false intelligence while tracking their leadership. Adunni felt a spark of hope. A double-agent operation? Exactly. But it would be extremely dangerous. You'd have to deliver the fake files personally, and there's no guarantee they'd honor their agreement to release your ex-husband. I'll do it. Major, if you're captured, the embassy will officially deny any knowledge of the operation. I understand, sir. That evening, as Funmi arrived at the Accra airport under embassy protection, Adunni was already boarding a private military flight back to Lagos. In her bag were the false intelligence files that could either save Chiki's life or get them all killed. But as the plane lifted off from Accra, her secure phone received one final message that changed everything. We know about the false files, Major. Your friend David told us everything before he died in military custody. Come alone, or everyone you care about dies. P.S. Check the Lagos news. She quickly accessed Nigerian news websites on the plane's internet. The headline made her heart stop. Former Minister David Adebayo found dead in military detention, apparent suicide. David hadn't committed suicide. The network had silenced him permanently, and now they knew about her plan. As the plane descended toward Lagos, Adunni realized she was walking into a trap with no backup, no advantage, and no guarantee that anyone would survive what was coming next. But she also realized something else. She was done running, done being reactive, done letting criminals dictate the terms of engagement. It was time for Major Adunni Okafor to go on the offensive. The abandoned warehouse in Apapa Port was exactly the kind of place where people disappeared forever. As Adunni approached the rusted metal building at midnight, carrying a briefcase full of false intelligence files, she could smell the Lagos lagoon and hear the distant sound of container ships. Her earpiece crackled with Colonel Mahmoud's voice. "Major, we have snipers positioned, but they're under orders not to engage unless you give the signal. This is your operation." "Understood, sir." She touched the small transmitter hidden in her collar. "Recording everything for evidence." Two armed guards flanked the warehouse entrance, their faces hidden by shadows. One of them gestured toward the briefcase. "Open it." She complied, revealing what appeared to be classified military documents. The guard nodded and waved her through. Inside the warehouse, harsh fluorescent lights illuminated a scene that made her stomach turn. Chiki was tied to a chair in the center of the space, his face swollen and bloodied. Around him stood 5 men in expensive suits, their leader immediately recognizable from intelligence photos, Chief Emeka Nwosu himself. "Major Okafor." Nwosu's voice carried the educated accent of someone who'd studied abroad. "Thank you for coming. I trust you brought what belongs to us?" "I brought the files. Now let him go." Nwosu laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, my dear Major, you really think this is just about files? You've destroyed a $5 billion operation that took us years to build. Files are just the beginning of what you owe us." He gestured to one of his men, who began examining the documents in the briefcase. After several tense minutes, the man nodded to Nwosu. "These appear authentic, sir. Financial records, contact lists, operational procedures, everything's here." Adunni felt a moment of relief. The false documents were convincing enough to pass initial inspection. "Excellent," Nwosu said. "Now, for the second part of our arrangement." "What second part?" "You said you'd release him in exchange for the files." "I lied." His smile was predatory. "You see, Major, you know too much about our operations to simply walk away, and your military training makes you far too dangerous to leave alive." One of his men raised his weapon toward Chike's head. "But I'm not completely heartless. I'll give you a choice. You can join our organization, use your military intelligence connections to help us expand internationally, or you can watch everyone you care about die, starting with your cheating ex-husband. And if I agree to work for you, then Mr. Okafor lives, your sister returns safely to her modeling agency, and you become very wealthy helping us access military intelligence across West Africa." Adunni looked at Chike, who was conscious enough to shake his head weakly. Despite everything he'd done to her, she couldn't let him die. "I need guarantees," she said, "proof that you'll honor your word." "The only guarantee in this business," Nwosu replied, is that betrayal has consequences. As he spoke, his phone rang. His expression darkened as he answered. What? When? How many? His voice rose with each question. All of them? He ended the call and stared at Adunni with new understanding. It seems your military friends have been busy while we've been chatting. They've raided our operations in Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Kano simultaneously. Arrested over 30 of our associates. Adunni kept her expression neutral. I wouldn't know anything about that. Of course you wouldn't. He pulled out his pistol and pointed it directly at her head. But somehow, the timing is quite coincidental. Her earpiece crackled again. Major, we've detected movement outside. 15 additional hostiles approaching your position. You need to get out now. But before she could respond, Nwosu's phone rang again. This time, his face went completely white as he listened. Boss, one of his men called out urgently, we've got military vehicles surrounding the building. It's the whole Nigerian army. Through the warehouse windows, searchlights blazed to life, and amplified voices began demanding surrender. Nwosu grabbed Adunni by the throat. You set us up! No, she gasped. I came alone, just as you demanded. Then how? His eyes widened as he noticed something. Your collar, your broadcasting. He ripped away the small transmitter, but it was too late. Colonel Mahmoud's voice boomed through military megaphones outside. Chief Nwosu, you are completely surrounded. Release Major Okafor and surrender immediately. You clever bitch, Nwosu whispered, pressing his gun harder against her temple. You've been recording everything. Every word, she confirmed. Every confession, every threat, every criminal conspiracy you've admitted to in the past 10 minutes. Then we all die together. But as he tightened his finger on the trigger, the warehouse lights suddenly cut out, and smoke grenades crashed through the windows. In the chaos that followed, Adunni heard the most beautiful sound in the world. The coordinated movement of Nigerian special forces executing a perfect rescue operation. The final confrontation was about to begin. But this time, Major Adunni Okafor wasn't fighting alone. The warehouse erupted into chaos as Nigerian special forces poured through every entrance. Smoke filled the air, laser sights cut through the darkness, and the sharp commands of military professionals echoed off the concrete walls. In the confusion, Adunni broke free from Nwosu's grip and rolled toward Cheek's chair. Despite everything her ex-husband had done, she couldn't leave him defenseless in a firefight. Stay down, she shouted, cutting his restraints with a knife she'd retrieved from one of the fallen guards. Gunfire exploded around them as Nwosu's men tried to fight their way out. But they were criminals, not soldiers. And the difference showed immediately. Within minutes, 4 of Nwosu's men were down, and the rest were surrendering. Chief Nwosu! Colonel Mahmoud's voice cut through the smoke. You're completely surrounded. Surrender now, and no one else needs to die. Go to hell! Nwosu's voice came from behind a stack of shipping containers. If I'm going down, I'm taking your precious major with me. He emerged from cover, firing wildly in Adunni's direction. She pushed Chike aside and dove behind a concrete pillar as bullets chipped away chunks of cement around her. You destroyed everything, Nwosu screamed, reloading his weapon. 5 years of building this network, hundreds of millions in revenue, connections across 3 continents, all ruined because you couldn't mind your own business. Your business was treason, Adunni called back. You were selling Nigerian military secrets to foreign governments. I was making us all rich. This country's intelligence is worthless anyway. Might as well profit from it. As he spoke, Adunni noticed one of the Special Forces soldiers flanking him from the left. She needed to keep Nwosu talking to give her backup the advantage. Tell me something. Nwosu, how long have you been planning to eliminate me? Since the day you started investigating the Katsina arms case. Do you have any idea how much money you cost us when you shut down that operation? Enough to make you corrupt a government minister and destroy my marriage. He laughed bitterly. Your marriage was already broken, Major. Your husband came to us willingly, your sister was eager for the money, and your friend David was greedy enough to sell out his own government. We just gave them the opportunity to show their true colours. The words stung because they contained truth. Her family's betrayals hadn't been forced, they'd been choices. But it doesn't matter now, Nwosu continued. Even with me dead, the network continues. We have operations in 12 African countries, connections in London, Dubai, and Hong Kong. You've won this battle, but you'll never win the war. Maybe not, Adunni replied, but I'll keep fighting it. The Special Forces soldier was now in position. Adunni caught his eye and nodded slightly. Surrender, Nwosu, it's over. For me, maybe, but not for... The sniper's bullet caught him mid-sentence, ending Chief Emeka Nwosu's criminal empire with surgical precision. As the smoke cleared and medics attended to the wounded, Colonel Mahmoud approached Adunni. Excellent work, Major. We recorded everything. Confessions, criminal admissions, details about their international network. This will break their West African operations completely. She looked around the warehouse at the arrested criminals, the evidence being collected, the justice being served. But her eyes kept returning to Chike, who was sitting on a medical gurney having his injuries treated. What happens now, sir? Now? Now you get a promotion. The president wants to personally commend you for breaking up an international espionage ring. You'll probably make lieutenant colonel within the year. And my ex-husband. Mr. Okafor will face charges for money laundering and fraud, but his cooperation tonight will be considered during sentencing. He'll likely serve 2 to 3 years instead of 10. Chike looked up at her from the gurney, his eyes filled with shame and gratitude. Adunni, I know I don't deserve... You're right, she interrupted. You don't deserve forgiveness, but you don't deserve to die for your stupidity either. She turned back to Colonel Mahmoud. And my sister? Funmi's modelling agency was being used without her knowledge. She'll face questioning but no charges. However, the agency will be permanently shut down. As they prepared to leave the warehouse, Adunni's phone buzzed with a text from Funmi. Sister, I heard what happened. Thank you for saving him. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust. 6 months later, Lieutenant Colonel Adunni Okafor stood in her new office at Defence Headquarters, looking out at the Abuja skyline. Her divorce had been finalised, Chike was serving his sentence in minimum security prison, and Funmi had started a legitimate fashion boutique with the money she'd saved from her modelling days. The network had been dismantled across West Africa, with over 200 arrests and millions in stolen assets recovered. David Adebayo's death remained officially classified, but Adunni knew the truth. He'd been silenced to prevent him from revealing even more damaging information about government corruption. Her desk phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Lieutenant Colonel Okafor. Mum, this is Captain Adelaja from Intelligence Division. We've identified a new criminal network operating between Nigeria and South Africa. They appear to be using construction companies and entertainment businesses as fronts for money laundering. Adunni smiled grimly. Send me the files, Captain. It looks like I have a new case to solve. As she hung up the phone, she realized that her revenge against those who had betrayed her had evolved into something much larger, a mission to protect her country from those who would exploit its resources and corrupt its institutions. The woman who had once hidden her military identity to preserve her marriage had become one of Nigeria's most feared investigators, someone criminals whispered about in fearful tones across the continent. Chike had kicked her because he thought she was powerless. Funmi had betrayed her because she thought she was naive. David had underestimated her because he thought she was just another government employee. They had all learned too late that Major, now Lieutenant Colonel Adunni Okafor, was a force to be reckoned with. Her revenge had left them all speechless, but more importantly, it had made her stronger, and she was just getting started. Thank you for watching this incredible story of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. What did you think of Adunni's journey from betrayed wife to decorated military officer? Comment below with your thoughts on this African marriage drama. Did justice prevail? What would you have done in her situation? Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed this emotional revenge story, subscribe to Stories by Tino for more gripping African drama, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Share this story with anyone who loves tales of strong women overcoming betrayal and public disgrace. What story should we tell next? Let us know in the comments, and remember, the best revenge is living well and fighting for justice. Until next time, keep believing in the power of truth and resilience.